So welcome everybody to this webinar on Xero reporting. We're lucky enough to have Caitlin Riethmuller, one of our managers at Biofuels here. So welcome, Caitlin.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Should be good. Caitlin's a Xero expert and she's going to be running through some of the reporting features. But before we do, we've got this general disclaimer here that everyone should have a bit of a read of. So Xero reporting, we've got clients all of the time, they ring up and they're asking, how do I find this, how do I find that? And things like how much super I owe my employees, or they might be taking a bigger picture view on current cash positions, why the consultant's budget is so different to the actuals in Xero. So Caitlin's going to give us a bit of a hand on how to demystify some of these questions and answer them. So over to you, Caitlin.
Yeah, that's exactly it, John. So here's just a list of the reports that I'm going to go through. I'm a bit of a practical person, so I find the best way to show people is to demonstrate what I'm explaining in an actual Xero file. So let's get into it.
Looking forward to it. So Caitlin, my consultant's just sitting down at the moment to prepare the current year budget, and just wanting to know what the activity statement was for December owing or refundable. How do I get that information out of here?
Okay, so the report you need is activity statement. So you just go to reports, it's under the tax heading and it's called activity statement. You just need to choose which period you want. I'm just going to have a look at the June 2021. And in here it will show you how much is refundable, payable on your BAS.
Okay, while we're talking about business activity statements, so what are the different elements that make up the activity statement?
So we've got sales, we've got wages. This has come straight from Xero Payroll, but you may need to type this in yourself. Then we come down, we've got our GST on our sales, GST on purchases, and this is where you put your fuel tax credits. You just manually type in your fuel tax credits.
And then if I wanted to have a look at a bit of detail around some GST, how do I get that information out of here?
So to have a look at the transactions that make up your BAS, you just go to transactions by BAS field. So here it shows me what my G1 is made up of. So I've got some wheat and wool proceeds. You can scroll down and you can see what your GST on purchases was as well.
Okay, so we've checked all of those items off if we're preparing the BAS for this quarter. Then what do you do?
So once you're happy with it, it's very important to finalise it.
So what's that finalisation do?
This just takes a snapshot of what you lodged to the ATO. So it shows all the transactions that were included in your BAS.
Oh, that's good. I suppose at least we know what went to the tax office and if that was different, then we can reconcile back. But what happens if we want to make some amendments?
So if you've accidentally finalised and you realise you need to change something, you can easily just delete it.
Okay.
And refinalise.
It's pretty easy. That's BAS's. So Caitlin, I've just received from my insurance company the workers' comp insurance statement. You know, that one where they reconcile the actual wages against the estimated wages for the year, and I need to work out what the actual wages were for last year, and that's say from the start of January to the end of December. How do I get that information?
Okay, so the report you need is called Payroll Activity Summary. So that's just down under the payroll heading, Payroll Activity Summary. So we want for the calendar year, so you're just going to go select date range and then type it in. And then go update. So here it shows you your total earnings, also shows the tax and your super.
So which item are we reporting on for the purposes of this insurance statement?
You'll be reporting on this one,
Okay.
your total earnings.
That's pretty easy. Then one thing I want to do also is have a look at how much super is owed at the end of the quarter. So the SGC 10% for my employees' wages.
Okay, so you could just change your date range. So I'm just going to have a look at the the June quarter. Update. And here it tells me, so I've got $718 of super that is owing.
Oh, it's pretty easy. Great. So Caitlin, the next little session we're going to do is actually digging into finding out the logic that goes through an accountant's mind when they're trying to find something. So I was thinking about this. A classic one would be, let's say I bought a two-way radio and I wanted to know how much I paid for it. How would you go about finding this two-way radio in this Xero file?
Okay, so the first place you could start is this search function. So you could try two-way.
Oh, bugger. It's no good. What else would we do?
Do you know where you bought it from?
Repco, I think.
Alright, so we could type in Repco. And there we go.
So we found it. So let's say, for argument's sake, that there was too many transactions under Repco. Let's say I was there every weekend. Then what would you do?
So a report that you could run is account transactions. In this report, you just type in the account that you think you coded it to. So I think I might have coded it to plant and equipment.
That would make sense.
Yep, you change your dates and then you just go update. Okay, so it looks like it's not in plant and equipment.
But I bought an Apple MacBook. So where would you go next? What's the next logic?
So you could keep typing in accounts, or you could run another report called your general ledger.
And so what's this doing?
So your general ledger, this is essentially a list of all the accounts you have transactions in. So you might run your eye down and see, repairs and maintenance. I bet you I coded it to that. So you can click on repairs and maintenance, and there's my two-way.
Okay, I get it. So really, you're using the search function at the start, and then if you can't get there, then just taking a more broader and broader view as you go.
Yeah.
It's cool. So Caitlin, I was just having a look at my bank balance and a little bit worried about my cash position at the moment. I wanted to get a good understanding of what I've spent my money on last year, and that's not only just my operating expenses such as my fertiliser and chemical, but it's everything. So I'd like to have a look at the tax that's gone out, the drawings, the loan repayments, the whole whack. How do we get to that?
Okay, so the report you need is called Cash Summary. So in here, you just choose your end date. So I'm just going to look at 12 months ending June 2021. My period is going to be 12 months, and then just click Update. So this shows me everything I've spent for the last 12 months ending on the 30th of June. So it's got my income, my expenses, has any loan repayments that I made, then it has my drawings and my tax paid, my GST on my income and expenses. And then coming down here, it shows me what my opening bank balance was, how much I've spent, and that's my closing bank balance.
So this is different to just an expense statement. This includes everything that's gone out the door.
Correct, yep, everything that's come out of your bank account.
Okay, great. Good bookkeeping hygiene. Caitlin, if there was one tip that you'd have to give me that I'd do it on a monthly basis, what should I be attending to?
Probably the most important thing is to check your bank account reconciles. So to do that, you can just click into your bank account and then click Reconciliation Report. You just change your date. And here will show you whether your bank account reconciles. So this one here is balance in Xero, and then this one here is what your statement balance is. So in my file, I can see that I have these unreconciled items, so my bank account doesn't balance.
So is this common amongst clients?
Yes, it is quite common, yep. People forget to run this report, and sometimes entries get added when they shouldn't have been.
Okay, so if we had one of those entries, how would you go and find that if you were going to have a look?
So you just go back into your bank account and then into account transactions, and you can just sort by status. Any unreconciled ones they need dealing with. And you can also sort by bank transaction source, and any that say user they need dealing with as
Okay.
well. Yours will say bank statement, however mine have just been imported, so that's a very clear indication that there's one that's wrong as well.
Okay, well, that's a pretty easy way to go and find something, and yeah, I'll make sure I reconcile my bank statement monthly. So Caitlin, we just sat down with the farm consultant and we've had the glossy annual review prepared with our budget in there. Now I'm wanting to take some of the figures out of the budget and put them into Xero. How do I go about doing that?
Okay, so the report you need is Budget Manager. So it's just under Financial. And here you go. So you can add a new budget in, and basically, yeah, this is your budget. So you can manually type it in here.
Oh, okay, that's not looking great. That's going to be fairly time consuming.
Correct. So another way you can do it is you can import it via Excel.
Okay.
So I have the Excel template here, but you're still going to have to manually type in these numbers unless you can copy and paste it from your consultant.
Okay. Well, that's all right. At least I know how to get them in. Now, I noticed when you were going through there, we've only got expenses and income. We don't have anything for loan repayments or income tax or any of the items that would be otherwise not operating expenses. So where do they go?
Yeah, that's correct. Unfortunately, Xero's budget only has income and expenses in it.
Okay, so I suppose it's useful to a point. Let's say we've put this budget in now and we've got another few months down the track. How would I then go and compare what I've actually spent versus the budget?
Okay, so to see what you've actually spent, you can use the budget variance report. You just click compare periods. I'm going to use my June, and here it shows what my actual was and what I budgeted.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's useful. We can see the basics. We've got income. It's just income and expenses, nothing, no other bottom lines. So, but that'll be useful to see, monitor and track spending.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yep.
So, Caitlin, we're going to dive into a little bit of accruals here in Xero. That's for the users that are not using cash, so using just entering in on invoice dates. Now, let's say I've sold some hay to the next door neighbour and I just want to have a real quick look and see whether I've been paid or not for that hay. How would I go about getting a report for that?
So the report you need for that one is your aged receivable summary. So that's just under your sales heading.
Yep.
Just change your date, click update, and here we go. So this basically shows what is owing to you from your customers. So here we go, we can see the neighbour owes me 26 grand.
For that hay. Okay, that's pretty easy. So flicking on to the other side of the coin, we're talking about payments outgoing. So I'm in June and I just sat down with the accountant to prepare a second tax estimate, and the accountant asked me how much fertiliser have I booked up and haven't paid for yet. So how would I go and find that?
Okay, so back to reports. And you can either use the aged payable summary report or the aged payables detail report.
Okay.
So if I use the detail report, I just change my date. And here we go. So CSBP, I can see that at 30 June, I owed them 246 grand.
Yeah, okay. So that's amounts that I haven't paid yet, but are still owing. Great.
Correct, yeah, shows you due date there.
Okay. So we'll change gears a little bit now and we'll go into preparing activity statements. So common process is that we'll enter in the litres into your fuel tax credit calculator for diesel purchased. So if I was trying to add up the amount of litres that I purchased last quarter and I wanted to use Xero, where would we go to? For that? Because I've looked up account transactions and it's been problematic.
Oh yeah, yep. So I'll quickly show you account transactions. So if I just search for fuel, change my date, we can see that there's no quantity column. So there's nowhere to work out how many litres you bought. So the report that you use is called Payable Invoice Detail. So just sitting under the Purchases heading.
Yep.
So in here you just change your date again. And this basically lists all the suppliers that you've purchased from during the quarter. So you might have a big list. So one way to quickly find your fuel or your fuel supplier is click Control F. And up here, you can just type in fuel, and there we go. It takes me straight to my fuel supplier. Here's my quantity column, so I can see that I purchased 28,500 litres during the quarter.
Okay, that's pretty easy. A good little tip there, just using Control F while you're in Xero. So, if I wasn't preparing my Xero file on an accruals basis and I was using cash, is there a workaround for working out these quantities?
Okay, so there is, and it's under products and services. So if you click business, go down to products and services. This is where you can enter any items you want to track. So I'm tracking diesel, petrol, sheep, wheat. You can track whatever you'd like basically. So you just add them in as new items. So when you're reconciling your bank account, and you're in your reconcile screen, I have Great Southern Fuels here to reconcile. So if I click add details, in this item column, this is where I can choose it. So I've purchased diesel, so I just click diesel, and you can see that it automatically populates your account. I can then just type in my quantity, so I might have bought 12,000 litres, and then I can click save. The report that I want to run now to see the quantity of fuel that I bought for the quarter is under inventory, and it's called inventory item details. If I change my date, here it shows me that for my June quarter, I bought 37,700 litres.
It's quite an easy workaround, just using item to report against to, and off you go. That's great. So Caitlin, we've been through a plethora of reports today, and but how would you go about keeping the reports handy and easily accessible?
Okay, so here you can see this star. So basically if you click accounting, all your starred reports will show up in this list. So to star them, you just click on reports, and then you can just put a star next to them. So you might want your budget variance report in your list. So you just star it, and now it's going to come up in your list.
Okay, super simple. That's quite a nice way to close it all out, Caitlin. Look, you've shown me heaps of bits and pieces in here that I'll take away and use in my day-to-day Xero bookkeeping. Thank you very much.
Not a problem, John. Thanks for having me on.
No problems. Thanks.